Amherst Youth Hockey says that they're investigating an altercation between a parent and a coach after a recent hockey game. 2 on Your Side's Nate Benson has the latest tonight from our newsroom. What's it all about, Nate?
Yeah, Mary Alice, we all know parents can be passionate about youth sports, but a recent altercation has led to one Amherst hockey coach to say he's all done after volunteering for decades. 2 on Your Side obtained this video at an arena in the Rochester area on February 22nd. The coach can be seen leaving the rink after a game, and on his way out, walks past one of the parents of his players. And in the original video, you can hear that coach say tough loss. And the conversation then escalates with the parent and coach exchanging words to the point where the parent shoves the coach, swats his hat away. Now, we clipped that audio because of the profanity that was used by the parent during this altercation. Now, the altercation eventually fizzles out and the coach leaves before security or anyone else can step in. Right now, it's unclear what sparked the altercation, but it is raising questions about parent conduct in youth sports. Amherst Youth Hockey sent us a lengthy statement saying that they are aware of the incident and that, quote, parents, coaches, players, referees, spectators are expected to build an atmosphere that supports safe enjoyment of the game for participants. That is non-negotiable. We stand by our volunteers, especially our coaches, and the work they do to build and provide a meaningful experience for our youth, both on the ice and as role models. Now, the league went on to say that a hearing will be held on this matter. Now, since no criminal charges have been filed, we withheld the names of the coach and the parent. On Your Side, Nate Benson, Channel 2 News.
Nate, thank you.
We really need the public to weigh in with our senators and tell them this is not acceptable.
Congressman Langworthy says there are more than 200 TSA agents in Western New York who are currently working without a paycheck. He's proposing legislation that would create a transportation security trust fund that would help support TSA workers during government shutdowns.
The Pay TSA Act of 2026 would address this gap by ending the diversion of passenger-paid security fee revenues away from aviation security and instead dedicating those funds directly to a sustaining TSA operations.
Langworthy says it would be funded by the aviation passenger security fee, which is collected by airlines. It's about an $11 fee for round-trip flights from the U.S. He says the bill has received bipartisan support at the congressional level.
When we finally get out of the shutdown, I don't intend to let this go. I look at this as an extension of my work as the chairman of the Aviation Safety Caucus. We need to keep our skies safe, and making sure that our TSA agents get paid in a shutdown is an important cog in that wheel.
Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand released a statement in response saying in part, quote, Transportation Security Administration workers provide an essential service to our nation by keeping us safe as we travel the skies. We should be working together to support these workers and keep our country moving safely, not playing political games at their expense. On Your Side in Buffalo, Chelsea Swift, Channel 2 News.
The first stage in trying to deal with the repair of the ships that are berthed here at the Buffalo Naval and Military Park is really underway with the removal of diesel fuel and oily water that is actually in the USS Croker. That's the World War II era submarine.
Ultimately, we knew we were going to have to remove the petroleum products that were on these vessels.
And they were working on a contract to do so. Actually, 25,000 gallons of residue diesel fuel and another 115,000 gallons of oily water on the Croker submarine, which had been there since the U.S. Navy turned over the now museum ship to the city for display in the 1980s. Another 30,000 gallons of oily water got into the adjacent World War II destroyer, USS the Sullivans, which partially sunk in 2022. The Naval Park says the recent discovery of a pinhole leak in the Croker moved it along now with some state and federal help.
The state DEC is a phenomenal team. They and the U.S. Coast Guard have stepped up to mobilize very quickly, much faster than we could have otherwise. And at the end of the day, we see this as good news. This is great progress that we're going to make quicker and probably a little cheaper than we would have been able to do without it being expedited in this fashion. So you're looking at somewhere between 6 to 10 days, and weather can be a factor. Obviously, we have some incoming weather that can make some of the conditions a little more challenging, but the goal is really to remediate these conditions so that but there's no threat to the environment.
Next will come dredging of the rivers so all the ships can be moved, and then maybe come the fall or sometime next spring, towing the Croker and Sullivans to Erie, Pennsylvania, and this Don John Shipyard dry dock where they repaired Cleveland's displayed submarine several years ago, all part of a $21 million project. On your side, Ron Plants, Channel 2 News.
This has been traumatic for me and my family.
Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority residents are voicing frustration.
Don't let us keep living in rat holes, because that's what they got us living in, a rat hole.
After what some say are years of unsafe and unsanitary living conditions.
I should be able to call in and not feel bad by speaking up that I need, my window broke or my water is running. How many times we had to call for hot water?
Tracy McLeod lives in a BMHA managed building. She says repeated maintenance issues and unanswered work orders have pushed her to take legal action.
I have work orders from 2019, and I had to go take them to court for Gillian Brown specifically, Anita Daniels.
Tensions escalated during the meeting intended to discuss BMHA's annual plan, a document that outlines the agency's budget and long-term redevelopment strategy for federal officials.
This is our meeting. That's not your meeting.
Well, no, this is our meeting now.
No.
We don't hear what we want to hear. You ain't going to have no meeting.
In a statement to Two on Your Side, BMHA Executive Director Gillian Brown, who was not physically at the meeting, said, quote, because of the barrage of offensive, belligerent, and insulting comments shouted at BMHA staff, no public comments were voiced on the agency plan. He went on to say the attendees, most of whom were not BMHA residents, came with their own agenda that had nothing to do with the agency plan.
The person that's in leadership right now should probably be removed.
These concerns follow previous resident forums, and now Buffalo Common Council member Rasheed Wyatt is calling for change in leadership.
You want to see a structural leadership governing change in BMHA.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. If we have this much outcry from these people, something is broken, and it's not them, it's the system.
On Your Side in Buffalo, Alyssa Clausel, Channel 2 News.
Boxes that once held meals to be warmed sit in the cold beneath the dark clouds over Seneca Babcock's Arlene Mihailo Community Center, where a sign on the door, like at other centers, announced programs have been curtailed, signed by Executive Director Brian Pilarski, who's admitted failure to file required IRS 990 forms on behalf of the agency for several years resulted in it losing its not-for-profit status. As questions loom about getting programs restored, another surfaces for anyone who may have donated to what they presumed was a bona fide not-for-profit, which technically wasn't, and then deducted the charitable contribution on their tax return.
Chances are that organization is being audited. They're the ones that are under the microscope of the IRS. Could the IRS then continue their investigation as to the donors? Yes, but I think that they certainly would have an innocent donor argument.
Jeffrey Volkel is a tax attorney.
Then you may still be able to, argue to the IRS that the organization walked like a duck, it quacked like a duck. It is a duck, even though they maybe did not have their technical 501c3 status. Because there's many organizations, such as churches, for an example, and other religious organizations that don't necessarily have the 990 filed, but they are nonetheless charitable organizations.
Seneca Babcock aside, Volkel says this provides a timely reminder to do your own homework before donating to any organization if you plan to count a charitable deduction on a tax return.
Hey there, Nate Benson here from Buffalo City Hall. It's been nearly a month since an independent investigation report was released to the public. Now, that report looked into misconduct allegations within the Buffalo public school system. Tonight was the first meeting since that report was issued, and it was not on the agenda. Which, by the way, is the name of the #1 streaming show Friday nights at 9 p.m. on WGRZ+. But we're not advertising for that right now. Please watch. The report outlined systemic issues within the Buffalo Public School District, particularly with school safety and 911 response. Since this was the first meeting since the report came out last month, one would assume the school board would talk about it during the regular meeting. They didn't. However, I chatted with board leadership about it during a break in Wednesday's meeting. Where do things stand? It's not on the agenda tonight. What's the board's temperature on everything?
Okay, so we released the information. It's on our website. We thank the independent investigator for their comprehensive investigation of the multiple allegations, which included interviews of 66 individuals and extensive review of documents. Currently, our district is looking at the recommendations. Some have been cleared, and some are now being reviewed and acted upon.
And this report gives us a roadmap, so the district is committed to following it. And we implemented some things immediately, and we're looking forward to continuing with the safety plan.
But since it's not being discussed during an open public meeting, what's been implemented as part of those recommendations?
Okay, so one I'm thinking about is that the school staff at School 59, the administrators and the museum administrators have cooperated and have decided on safety protocols together. They're on the same page with that.
I did inquire with board leadership about a possible public meeting so the report could be discussed openly by the public and the board itself. Any consideration of giving an actual dedicated meeting to address all the recommendations and all the concerns from the public?
Well, if it's requested by the community that we have a meeting, I think that we could possibly do that, yeah. The information has been released. We'll give the community time to digest it, and if they request a meeting, of course.
And please note that a lot of the recommendations we're not going to make public. They've been redacted in that report. And so that's not going to happen for the safety and protocols of our schools.
But safety is a priority.
However, that report outlined systemic problems with safety protocols within the school district. In other school board related news, the board rejected a candidate for interim COO that Dr. Pascal Mubenga had recommended in a 5-4 vote. That candidate was turned down, and now a special meeting will be needed to select a new one. On your side outside Buffalo City Hall, Nate Benson, Channel 2 News.
Well, this would apply to so-called white elephant buildings that have been empty for at least 10 of the past 15 years that require a lot of rehab. We're talking at least $50 million in qualified rehabilitation costs. The State Historic Preservation Office says there are 35 buildings that would qualify based on size, including the Central Terminal, the AM&A's building, and the Richardson Complex in Buffalo. The bill, sponsored by State Senator April Baskin, would expand the New York State tax credits available for those white elephant buildings from $5 million to $15 million. It would also incentivize projects that include low-income housing. For the bill supporters, it's something that has to get done in order to get those buildings back online.
This could put a lot of options on the table for a lot of different buildings that you see, whether it's downtown Buffalo. As I said, you've got the Central Terminal, the AM&A's building, as I mentioned. All these places could be lofts, could be apartments, could be buildings, mixed use. And so this could really give a lot of people different options.
I think it's important to note that historic tax credits in New York State have leveraged over $17 billion in project investment. So for every developer that has access to a historic tax credit, it allows them to invest more from their end in terms of economic redevelopment.
Right now, the bill is in committee in the Senate. Other buildings across the state flagged in the legislation include the Central Warehouse in Albany and the New York Central Power Plant in Yonkers. On your side, Kelly Dudzik, Channel 2 News.
The excitement of March Madness has millions filling out brackets and placing bets.
It's just always fun and exciting for people to watch and get in, and get in on the excitement.
But with that excitement comes risk.
It's important to set a budget just like you would for any other entertainment and say, I want to spend X dollars during March Madness.
Lori Kalani is the chief responsible gaming officer at DraftKings. She says built-in safeguards are designed to keep players accountable.
Once somebody sets a limit and they can set those for various time frames, they're unable to change those until the end of that time period.
Staying in control, she says, should be part of the experience, not an afterthought.
Responsible gaming is for everybody. It's not for people who have problems. It's quite the opposite. It's for people who are placing bets just to make sure you stay in budget and never overspend or spend too much time.
But here in Buffalo, experts say problems often show up after the bets are placed.
What I see is people are unfortunately seeing the consequences and then reaching out
for help.
At Best Self Behavioral Health, they're seeing the impact of easier access to online gambling.
You don't have to go to the casino anymore to gamble. You can do it from home.
That accessibility is also reaching a younger crowd.
Gambling does not discriminate, and one of the trends we're seeing is the impact that it's having on younger people today as well.
And when it becomes a problem, the warning signs can start to affect daily life.
You're chasing losses, trying to win back money that you have lost, lying or hiding your gambling.
But support is available for those who need it.
There's no shame in getting help, recognizing that maybe you are in over your head. That's the time to reach out and step for help because there's so many different resources available.
On your side, Lauren Hall, Channel 2 News.
What do you think?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
The markets director was pleased with this latest glimpse of the project being paid for with state tax dollars and which will go before the city's preservation and planning boards for approval. She says businesses which operate year-round here will stay open during the 2-year construction, which will be done in phases.
You'll see that when you come in, there will be a wall dividing the market in half. And so this half of the market will be worked on first, the east side of the market. And when that's completed, all of your meat departments will move into their new spaces.
Which will be down the center, sort of like a main street in the middle.
And you'll have your butchers and your produce and your bakeries and your nuts and all those great items on one main aisle.
I thought you were going to say the butchers, the bakers,
and the candlestick maker. I know that one. No candlestick makers yet, but you never know.
This space, which once housed a Save-A-Lot grocery store, will be converted into a production space, allowing merchants to make goods on site.
So the Greek baker, Oasis, famous horseradish, they will actually be in production spaces and open on Saturdays.
When finished, the escalator will be a thing of the past, as the market will strictly be a 1-story operation, and the 3-story parking garage encompassing the back half of the complex will be removed and replaced with a surface lot. And while some merchants we spoke with privately expressed concern about the net reduction of parking spaces, Peterson says there are some advantages.
You could have a farmer's market in the back, food truck rodeo, lots of different options.
That is the most obvious.
Former FBI special agent in charge Peter Ahern is weighing in on new threats from Iranian military officials who say parks, recreational areas, and tourist destinations worldwide, quote, won't be safe.
You want to scare them saying, oh, your national parks. And you're, oh, sure, you worry about the Capitol. You worry about the Lincoln Memorial. You have Niagara. You have the Falls.
Ahern, who led Buffalo's FBI office during 9/11 and had a major role in the Lackawanna 6 investigation, says these types of threats are not new.
And you can probably find tapes of me from 9/11 saying exactly the same thing we're talking about now.
He says so-called soft targets like parks, malls, and public gathering spaces have long been a focus for law enforcement. But Ahern says some of the biggest threats right now aren't on the ground. They're online.
Everything is a threat. People just need to be aware we are in a war. The threats are everywhere. And it's not just a threat of your safety. It's not just a threat of a active shooter. We have bigger issues, bigger threats. The cybersecurity threat, the infrastructure threats are major.
He says cyber attacks targeting critical systems like power grids and even places like banks are growing more common.
For a normal everyday citizen, it's a repercussion of an attack, let's say on a bank or on an energy grid or on something like that.
Ryan claims that for far too long the city's had more or less a default position of knocking homes down rather than investigating thoroughly how they might be rehabbed instead, resulting in 300 residential structures and commercial buildings being demolished in just the past 5 years.
This is what often happens. An irresponsible owner either doesn't come to housing court or is uncooperative, and eventually the judge says, your property is so bad, we're going to order demolition. That's all we could do. We're going to get in front of that. We're going to ask for the receivership program, abandonment, or eminent domain, so we can take over those blight properties before it gets to demolition.
But sometimes neighbors wait for years to see a derelict home on their street finally removed.
And how many more years before it's demolished because of what you're doing?
That's only happening because the city was mismanaged in the past. We're going to have a permits and inspection department that responds. So we're not going to waste all our time like we did in the past. We're going to be proactive, Dave, and we're going to get on top of these things before they become a problem.
Ryan also acknowledged it's not likely that all the properties previously slated for demolition but now up for a review will be saved.
At the end of the 60 days, will some houses be demolished? Probably, but it depends on the evaluation. Will 100 houses be demolished? Probably not.
The demolition moratorium announced today is just for residential properties.
We will soon be releasing a report talking about the 10 buildings in downtown Buffalo that are a clog to other things being developed. The cobblestone structures, the Adams Mark, the Statler, the Main Place Mall, M&A's, but that'll take a whole different set of policies and a whole different set of practices. But here we are.
Mayor Ryan dropped a budget bombshell during an unrelated press event Thursday afternoon. When talking with reporters about city finances, he said this.
The budget year we're coming up on, we're estimating it's a $109 million deficit.
But that figure is if the city doesn't get the $30 million promised from Governor Hochul, an estimated $11 million from the state's gaming compact with the Seneca Nation, which is still unresolved, and the selling of the city-owned parking ramps or deficit financing through the Fiscal Stability Authority. If all of that happens, there's still a structural deficit of
about $45 million.
So what does that mean for taxpayers?
That $45 million gap means that every homeowner in Buffalo is going to be asked to pay about $20 to $30 a month more in taxes. So it'll be probably about, right now, the numbers are still back and forth, about a 25% tax increase. That's what we're looking at.
And that's a figure Common Council members say they have not heard nor support.
Is that a sustainable increase that your constituents would be able to afford?
No, not at all. Not as it stands right now. No, I don't see it. But that's something that we're going to talk about. It's time for us to make some hard decisions. 25% is astronomical. And as I said, right now, it's speculative, so who knows what's going to happen just yet. I'll have to wait till we actually see a budget.
I don't know how this is going to shake out, but I know one thing is that I can't support a 25% tax increase. There's no way in the world my residents can afford that. We are already seeing rises in user fees and all different types of things. And, you know, I'm not trying to see my residents get pushed out of their neighborhood.
Is this a tax increase you can support?
No. Absolutely not. And I certainly hope that the council will not skip our duties by going over the budget line by line this year and looking at every single item in the budget and making cuts, finding places where we can make cuts.
Based on the conversations that I've had with council members, right now, Mayor Ryan does not have enough votes to pass a budget with a 25% tax increase.
No, I wouldn't vote for 25%. And like I said, I was concerned with 15. And look, I represent a district where I have a lot of senior citizens on a fixed income. So their incomes aren't going up, their taxes are going up, gas is going up, utilities are going up, food costs are going up. So it's a lot.
However, per the city charter, if budget amendments are not made during a negotiation period between the council and the administration, or if the proposed budget is flat out rejected by the council, then by default, Ryan's proposed budget moves forward as is, even if the council votes against it.